Okay. Welcome to Video Game Talk.
The Effin' Game podcast.
Yeah.
Name pending. So, Effin' Games. I'm your host, audio only, Dylan. Also
this
with me.
This is audio Dylan.
Yeah. Versus video Dylan. Also with me, we got Price here. Price, say something so the people know.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, thank you. We're on audio, so they need to know you're here, and I'm not just making this up. Nathan is also off here to my right.
No, he's just making voices.
Really good impressions.
Yeah.
I'm amazing.
He's
with
great at it.
This is a crazy man, really good at impersonation, slowly losing his mind. That's a podcast I want to listen to, actually. So you tuned into the right place. That sounds really fun.
And if you notice that there's only 3 of us, and you're noticing a missing link in here somewhere, he's probably at work right now. But also, he doesn't play games very much. So
yeah,
we
not
can't
nearly
trust him.
enough anyway.
Not enough.
Not for a podcast.
Yeah, he's not enough to be a true gamer boy.
he pretty much just plays Hot Shots Golf on repeat all the time.
Which is
so he's not going to be helpful.
Which is to say he doesn't play video games.
And that's Mason, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody wondering who Mason is at home, he's dead. And then Taylor Swift's beat drops right there.
Yeah, exactly. So our normal discussion is just going to be us kind of talking, so you know what we're having going forward. It's normally going to be us just talking about the games of the week that we've played, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's topical, most of the time it's not, especially with one of us here.
Yeah.
I imagine it's not going to be topical.
If there's one thing you can take from me, it's that whatever's going on, I'm about 10 years behind.
That's
on
true.
that.
Especially today, based on what he's told us he's going to talk
with what
about.
I've been playing this week, I am definitely 10 to 20 years behind the curve on what I've been playing.
So we're our normal discussion is going to be consisted of just us kind of talking about games that we've been talking about this week. That's pretty much how this is going to go going forward. But just for this one podcast, since it's the end of the year, everybody's doing top things. We're also going to do a top 5 for each of us, but it's not games that's just come out this year. It's going to be any game that you've played this year. So anything's on the table because, as we were talking about, this is obviously not our jobs. It's just for fun. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hard to pull a top 5 of the year when it's not like your dedicated job and like you're trying to stay in the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
because A, it's expensive, and B, it's time consuming.
Well, and you don't want to like miss out on, like, if you want to say that you are some kind of authority on the best games of the year, that's a really hard goal to reach because there are so many games that come out, and I won't be able to ever give them that much time anyway, even if I could afford to just be buying all of them.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I want to thank our viewers for not letting this be our full-time job because you guys aren't paying us, you stingy bastards.
Comment. Just, like, subscribe, but just comment.
You think I don't want to play video games and watch movies for, like, a living? Well, that's not true. I actually really like what I do. But
this is going to be going on YouTube just in case you wanted to. You're not getting any video, so I don't know. You don't have to do it. But it's also going on Spotify, which is what we're kind of aiming towards. So it's going to be mainly on our podcast on there, which we haven't decided if it's going to go on our movie podcast stream, or we'll figure that out later. You'll find out at some point. But anyway, to start us off, am I going first?
Yeah, start us off, Price.
Yeah, so what have you been playing this week, Price?
So what I have been on, the biggest thing is I've been playing a lot of games this week. Ever since Black Friday, I bought a ton of games.
Yeah.
One of which...
you had mentioned...
I have a stockpile of games. Like, all the games throughout the year, I keep on a list. And when Black Friday comes around, that's when I actually purchase them. Mm-hmm. Unless it's like a big purchase that I want to make that I'm really looking forward to. But like Resident Evil Village, like, I wanted to play it, but I'm going to wait till it's $20. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The big one I've been playing this week, though, is Hades, which I know all of us have played. We talked about it last year extensively. I beat it again this year. I did it a lot quicker than I thought. Like, I did the same thing as last time that I told you all about. I was like, once you beat it for the first time, it's like...
You've learned how to play the game.
You learned how to play the game, and like it's just like you get complete runs every time. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't have a problem after that. I had like a 11 or 12 run streak before I just stopped because like I was just beating it every time, doing different builds every time.
Yeah.
But... It's a wonderful game. I'm sure everyone's played it pretty much at this point. I think I don't really know it's kind of something I did want to talk about with you all. Is last year at the Game Awards, I don't know if you remember, one of the big things that people were talking about is like Hades was the big one that like most of the people wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the Goliath that was The Last of Us 2 was what won instead. Mm-hmm. And I'm honestly more inclined to kind of go with The Last of Us 2, in my opinion. I think it's more meaty in what it does, and I think it like does a lot different when it could have just followed exactly what it did with the first game.
Yeah.
But I think Hades does a lot different, and it deserved the spotlight that it got.
Well,
in that opinion.
the thing, I don't feel like I can really say accurately between the two because I never played The Last of Us 2. I only ever watched somebody play the first Last of Us. I could see the argument with Hades is like, oh, it's refreshing to most people.
Yeah.
But to be honest, roguelikes in that nature are ubiquitous and everywhere. And that is a particularly good, satisfying one that hit the mainstream really well. But I don't think it was actually as unique as maybe everybody wanted to say it was.
Right. Yeah, and I think you make a valid point on, again, roguelike isn't by any means a foreign genre anymore. Dark Souls, Demon Souls already, they broke that. I mean, they've made it that almost every game wants to feel like that in a lot of ways.
You could argue that's kind of roguelike. I've played probably
and it's
20 different roguelikes.
It's on the much more accessible end of roguelikes. It's not as hard as, like, again, some of the other ones. But it's not here about
Which will be what I talk about in my next game. But
sure.
Just remember that point, because it will be brought up again.
So it's less so about difficulty and accessibility. I think if we're talking specifically Last of Us 2 against Hades, it's one of those things where it's just like, not only is it a genre thing, I mean, are you somebody who loves roguelikes? And sure, Hades stands out because Hades is exceptional for what it is. But at the same time, if you're also sitting here and saying, like, man, a game you could genuinely talk about for hours, which we did. Go check out our review of The Last of Us 2. Humble plug.
We did do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's on the channel.
That's over on the YouTube channel, finally, years later. But
that's when Donkey put out his video.
Right. Yeah. So it is one of those games you could talk about at length, and not only just the gameplay, but in the story and all of that. And I think that it takes a lot to be uniquely special in that. Now, to sit there and say I couldn't talk a lot about Hades, for sure, but honestly, I think there's a grander thing of what you want out of your games. Do you want a crazy narrative, deep experience, and story told and stuff like that? Hades, maybe not really super the game for that, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super deep. It tells a good story that compels you through engaging gameplay. Like, Hades is the story of a game with really engaging moment-to-moment action and quick, tight decision-making. And the thing that I think it does well in the roguelike genre that maybe did make it stand out and make it more accessible, like you were saying earlier, is the adjustable difficulty.
Yeah,
being
that
able
was
to
very
decide
nice.
how hard or in what way it gets more difficult.
Are you talking about the heat meter?
Heat level. Right.
Okay, because there's also God mode,
Right.
which is different. But yeah, the heat meter, I think
just for
helps
the
a
sake
lot.
of heat meter, being able to say, all right, if you want this to be so insanely difficult that it's like bragging rights, you can do that. If you want it to just be like, you just want to play this game, but you want it a little bit harder than what you've been already doing, that's also possible.
Well, and it eases you into it, and it's just like gently coaxing you that direction because it's like, you know, you could just keep running without heat, but if you don't raise it, you don't get the extra rewards. So it's just like slowly being like, hey, just try it out. Just maybe try this. Maybe let the traps do 4 times the damage to you. You can avoid traps, right?
I will say, if nothing else, that it, as a game and just like as a start to finish, like mechanically speaking, I would probably put it over Last of Us 2.
Oh, the moment-to-moment gameplay, I think, of Hades definitely beats
I think it shines
Last of
over
Us.
any other game last year, and that says something considering how much of like a run last year was with it.
I think Fall Guys had pretty good gameplay mechanics.
I didn't,
Anyway, we're not here for that.
I didn't play that.
So,
I wouldn't know.
But
It's terrible. I love the game.
And again, I think it always just comes back to what you want out of your game. If you want, I mean, again, you go into Last of Us kind of expecting a little bit of like a cinematic game. Like you're getting a movie with your game. You're getting a deep story.
But you're getting 2 things with it, whereas like Hades is like mostly game with some story, whereas Last of Us 2 you kind of get both.
It had simpler goals, but it excelled in completing those goals.
Yeah.
Right. Where, I mean, Last of Us 2 had controversy around it, but it had controversy around it because the story was so engaged in that. So, I mean, again, like, you're splitting hairs, but those two, I think, are ahead above most every other thing that came out last year.
That was the main thing that I played this week, but the other thing I really wanted to talk about, though, was Sekiro. Because that's what you all were just talking about a second ago, about like the Souls-like games being like roguelikes. I got to in Sekiro. Have both of you played that?
No.
I've played it.
So, I've played all of the Dark Souls games. but I've not touched that. Like I played Bloodborne, Demon's
I should have
Souls.
let you borrow it. I have it at the
I keep
apartment
waiting
right now.
for it to get cheaper on Steam.
Well, I have it on PS4.
Well, I only want to play.
He only wants to
Oh
play
my
on PC.
god! I need the
those-
achievements.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
We'll get into that at some point. I'm sure.
I tried Bloodborne when it came out. I couldn't get into it. It was when it first came out, so I can't really say like exactly what it was that got me. But I played Sekiro this week, and it just feels like I love roguelikes, as you will see for my top 5 of the year or whatever. But Sekiro is like, it just doesn't feel like it's fair. It's like if the game, it's like what a YouTuber I watch. He's like, if the game expects me to be perfect, the game needs to be perfect. And that I fought the Chain Ogre was the first one that got me at the end of that level. Like he's like a little boss, I guess.
Yeah.
And it just feels like the hitboxes are so unfair that like I just stopped, because like he has this lunge grab attack where like if you have full health and he grabs you,
He pile drives you or whatever,
you
like,
die
he's just-
instantly. And I felt like I was dodging, moving and stuff the whole time, but like he would grab me and then like I would be like 2 feet to the left and like it would connect with me. And I was like, this is utter bullshit. So, like, it does not, like, the game is not perfect when it's expecting me to be perfect. And that's when I just quit, because like I just couldn't do it. It's just like unfair mechanics are the number one thing that annoys me about video games, which I don't know if anybody's here played Inscription. Perchance.
No, I've looked at it a little bit. I dig the art style, but
It's a very interesting game, and it's the top of a lot of people's lists. But like the thing is, like you play cards, it's a deck builder. You play cards, and the boss eventually gets some mechanics that changes things up. Like one of them, like his ultimate move is he gets like the cards that you have and takes them to his side. And like it's like an ultimate move that basically takes like 3 moves to charge. But in the final boss battle, he gets that move like every turn. So every time you play something, he gets it on his side. And I was like,
Yikes.
that just doesn't seem fair.
yeah.
Like, I don't understand what you do about that.
It seems a little lazy with that one. But
So is it a deck building roguelike, so you just build up and
It's a
go
deck builder with
through
small roguelike qualities. Like, when you
Okay.
die, you can make your own card. That
Because
helps
Slay the
you.
Spire is straight
yeah,
up a
Slay
deck
the
builder
Spire is just
roguelike.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God, I love that
Slay
game,
the
though.
Spire. But
I haven't played that one yet either.
so to your point on Sekiro, though, I mean, and that the Chain Ogre stuff happens really early on, though. That being said, I mean, we're sitting here talking. You haven't even begun to really scratch too deep into the surface of the game at that point. So.
I don't
Was
care.
that your first death in it? Or?
Oh, I died so many times. In
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I
But
tried
that was
over
like
and
your
over.
first one where you felt like it wasn't.
Yeah,
feel
I died
undefeated.
before, but like I felt like I did
Which is
that.
so funny because he's right before a boss too. Like he's like this, like he's like an outer war. It's not really. I wouldn't even give him like a mini boss. Like he doesn't even have a health bar. It's just like one of those like exceptionally hard ones.
Yeah, that Sekiro is the one that most intimidates me to get into. Like I'm going to at
I
some
wanted to
point,
like it.
but
Oh,
from everything I've heard about it, it's one of those ones where it's like get good or get out,
Yeah.
and that can be kind of frustrating.
As
I got good with Bloodborne,
Yeah.
but Bloodborne still had forgiving nature to it that I feel like Sekiro is not going to have.
see, I think it's funny. I think Bloodborne's harder than Sekiro. If I'm being
Really?
honest. Okay, so and it's a big thing if you've
Child
been
of cost. That is
Right.
like the bar for hard. in
right.
my mind.
So I would say the big thing is at the end of the day with that game is that if you're somebody who's played through all of the game, like especially if you're a Soulsborne player, right? Like if
Yeah.
somebody who really grinds out that stuff like that, it's just a difference of learning mechanics. Honestly, I thought Sekiro got a lot easier once you realized how important and easy it is just to sit there and guard and parry is so much of the main mechanic that you're getting.
Yeah.
And it's not even parrying as hard as like other Dark Souls. It's
You would say
literally
what's
just sitting
funny? That
around.
lunge attack, you can't block it.
No,
You can
okay,
only
so
dodge it.
but guess what? They have jump, and which is a new mechanic. That's the biggest thing. The biggest leap from the Soulsborne verse into Sekiro is that you have to learn how to jump and navigate vertically now.
Well, anyway,
But-
I'm not playing anymore. I'm not going to be persuaded. I'm done with it. So, Dylan, what about you? What you been playing this week?
It's been primarily Final Fantasy 14 since August. So turns out MMO takes up a lot of time. So
yeah, that's why I've avoided them.
I traditionally have for a long time, but I'm
Didn't you play WoW a lot?
Yeah, well,
well,
yeah,
and,
Oh, that's
and
why.
you learned your
I was-
lessons. Yeah.
I was well and truly addicted to WoW.
Yeah.
like
God.
absolutely, countless hours.
See, so for me, it was so funny. This year, looking at the like slate and schedule, it was somewhere between like April. I've been sitting here saying I need to get back into that, and I finally started back in on August. But I remember thinking there's just such a huge lull, and like games that didn't appeal to me, nothing came out. And during that time, it was lucky I think because it was prepping tournament season for Final Fantasy trading card game. I say tournament season like if we were having an official bracket. Just we had like 2 tournaments like in relative time to that. So I was playing around with that set. And then I finally got around to sitting there and saying, okay, after I was talking with all like the Final Fantasy trading card game nerds, everybody's playing 14 in that community, so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm getting into it. And it was after like a recent tournament around August where I finally said, all right, let me dive into it. And just the grind. I mean, again, so it's an MMO, so take what you will with that. But it's the MMO and Final Fantasy that really put me together, because I was just like, okay, I want to see, like, I keep seeing random clips. I keep seeing stuff that hypes me up for it, because I'm a lifelong Final Fantasy fan. The cinematics are awesome. The cinematics are just like a Final Fantasy. The story, man, okay, so I've played the first little bit of it, like, back in the day. Whenever it first came out, it was just a Realm Reborn, which is base. And then you get, the next 3 expansions before this most recent one. And I just keep seeing so much hype, and the trailer would come through on the new expansion. I'm like, shit, that kind of looks cool. I don't know. And after this most recent one, Endwalker, for those at home, after I saw that trailer, I was just like, all right, you know what, fuck it, let's dive in. But I had to fucking play it all the way up, where it's just like, turns out, a lot of time.
Oh, so you have to, so in that one you have to catch back up through.
Yeah, like, you
it's
play...
not like, new content isn't just max level content.
Right, I mean, and you could leap into it with that way if you're just there to play it, but Final Fantasy is very much a story-driven thing, and I didn't want it to be very confused, and I want to know why I feel a certain way about these characters, if bad things or good things happen to them. So, I mean, it all builds on it. Like, there is a unique story that goes across the whole thing. It is a story that builds from base with every expansion forward. It's not like separate stories.
I guess I've not played an MMO like that, because the MMOs that I played were
WoW was self-contained in its own ways, right?
WoW is not about like a story that you follow along as you level up. Like there's little tiny stories in the different areas you're in, but none of them are like a meaningful thing where you're following along with a character in some way, in which I assume that
I mean, this one effectively is just a Final Fantasy that is just in the medium of MMO. Like, if you look at it from a core like gameplay mechanic, it's MMO. But as a Final Fantasy, it tells one story from very start to very finish on Endwalker, which is the conclusion of this giant story arc, which has been going on for like, God, I don't know.
Well, Destiny kind of does that too, right?
Yeah,
Destiny's it has like a story that you follow through and has its own overarching theme.
Right, it has all like the alien invasion and stuff, and like you're kind of like this in a lot of same ways.
And you can say the same thing happens in WoW, where it's like, oh, this is the story of what's happening here.
Right.
But it doesn't really.
It doesn't put a focus.
Feel like a story. Like the story plays out in cutscenes and stuff that happen, but it doesn't seem like you're the one driving the story forward or participating in the story. It's like, this is just the story. You're playing this game, but this is the story of what's going on.
Yeah. So, the big thing that's been going on with Final Fantasy recently, though, is with Endwalker coming out being a huge... And, like...
It got delayed a lot, right?
Yeah, Endwalker... Well, not too long. It got delayed, I think, like 3 weeks or something like that from its original date.
People who are fans of 14, though, are huge fans. Yeah. They're rabid about it.
I get it, though, because 14 is... So, here's my pitches. Not necessarily why you should play it, but why you should just appreciate it.
It's a lifestyle.
It is. It's not so much a lifestyle. But, I mean, it's an MMO with a crazy positive community.
And it does.
I think
I've noticed that from the outside.
That in itself was already a feat, right? Because I didn't play WoW, but I've just playing like a handful of other MMOs, if it not, or even just online games with like community, from something from shooters to anything else, and most of the time it's like get fucked.
You played.
I played Rainbow Six
Rainbow
Siege.
Six, yeah.
Yeah, arguably one of the most toxic communities of all time.
And I play League. So.
Yeah, and you play League. So
I understand.
If there's not a refreshing breath of fresh air, it's the community in itself. Like, I've literally went in there, and for like the first handful of expansions, you have literally like a little like. It's a sprout, is what you're called, right? It's like this little leaf that says, "Hey, I'm new. I've only been playing this game for like maybe 100 hours, relative to like."
I've only been playing 100 hours.
Right,
and you can beat Persona 5 in that time.
After 100, you finally lose it, right? But like 100 hours in MMO translates very differently. Though, to be fair,
that's absurd.
So right, I know.
You get that in a week.
Exactly. So you have a sprout. You have a sprout on your head for. So I had it for like the first like 2.5 expansions for like gameplay mentality, right? So halfway through my experience, that I only finally lose that sprout thing on there, which was really helpful because there are times where it's just like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, and it's straightforward. You go straight forward. You kill enemies and shit like that. But there are times where it's just like, oh, this little raid is falling apart because I fucked up, and like. Everybody's just like, you're a sprout. We get it, dude. 100%.
You're a sprout.
Yeah, like, and I kind of loved it though. It gave me this excuse to sit there and be fucking bad because I just was like, as somebody who just got into it.
Does it have like PvP and that sort of
there's
stuff?
a PvP
like
thing.
Open world PvP.
No, so it's not
because that to me is like, I feel like that's where you could see toxicity.
Yeah.
In specifically in somebody having the sprout,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like,
they would
you're
just be
new.
farming them.
Oh,
right.
you are fresh meat.
Yeah. So there's no open world PvP. All of it is engaged through like the duty finder, right? And it's just like arena things. Like you team up with a team. Everything is collaborative in this game.
I feel like that's maybe a thing that
it makes a big difference with the culture,
makes
though.
a huge difference culturally.
Yeah.
Because the open world getting ganked kind of stuff, I think breeds a toxic environment.
Well, look at Demon Souls,
quickly.
Dark Souls, Bloodborne, into that stuff where you're supposed to spawn in and be a little toxic. But yeah.
And that's something that WoW has had forever. And I think you could probably see that, like, PvE servers versus PvP servers,
the culture is so
have different cultures. So I would imagine an MMO that is just completely done away with that probably does a lot to make a more positive environment to begin with.
Right. No. So here's a perfect little story. Right. So you have your duty finder, which is like the game's like put your party together, do this quest thing. Mm-hmm. Then you have party finder, which effectively lets you kind of just free ball, put people in, and like people can join you from whoever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like your own little thing, and you pick the quest, and you can also set the requirements because sometimes you're like level synced to it. So if it's level 60 quest, you're level 60. But let's say you're like a level 90 character, you can unsync it, go in, and just beat the fuck out of that boss, right? So which is pretty satisfying. But perfect little fun story that I'll use to kind of wrap out my thought here is that we get these little journals for experience, and you have to do like the quest that they say that you have to do, and then after you do like 8 or 9 of them, you get like a shit ton of experience. So there was one that was like one of these big raids, one of those like 8 people raid things with like, you know, mechanics that you have to really focus on and stuff like that. And the base level is pretty alright, but then there's like extreme and like difficult versions, which just say that the mechanics are a lot harder and the difficulty curve is a lot harder. So I had like some free time, and I went ahead and queued for extreme on like a party finder thing because I was just like, sure, why not? And some crowd was like, hey, we want to complete it at level 60. And I said, sure, probably won't take that much long. So 5 hours into my Saturday, I'm sitting here with people on Discord from this fucking thing, coordinating like this stuff. And it was like, literally, it was so funny to me because it was like a group of like 5 people, but they needed 3 randos, right? Mm-hmm. So this group of 5 said they've been trying it for a month to try to get this down. And it's not even like the most newest one. This is like a level 61, and the game is up to like level 80 before Endwalker dropped. Mm-hmm. So this is like 2 sets ago.
Is there a thing that you're getting out of this?
Yeah. So for that one, you get like a title thing, but it's mostly just to sit there and say that you did it, and it's just like a satisfying feeling thing. Sure. It's what EA would say is pride and accomplishment for sitting there and accomplishing your game.
For 5 hours of your time.
Right, exactly. So to be fair, it's fucking sweet, and you do feel very validated after doing it, because when you do one of those raids that requires you to be like incredibly coordinated to a T, like people cannot be more than like a millimeter apart for certain mechanics, and everybody needs to be coordinated in this one way. Oh my god. So I fell into it because I was just like, fuck it, why not? And I did that for 5 hours, and afterwards, like, we finally beat it on this, like, literally this last run that it should have been before we had to re-queue back out. People are screaming in the Discord. Hannah walks in. She's like, what the hell is going on in here? Because she just hears madness in there. We fucking did it. Fuck yeah. Yo, get together. Do a post. We're going to do a screenshot picture. We're going to put it up in our Discord. So I'm like, okay. I don't care as much as they did, but it was very satisfying after putting 5 hours in to be like, oh, thank fuck we did do this. And I got it. And it was just something for my wife to see. A true MMO like experience, like marketed, is raids for like a lot of things, right?
Absolutely.
Like at a glance,
is the pinnacle of MMO.
Exactly. Content. When you get together with the boys and you do a raid and you just fucking coordinate it and it crushes it, and it's been spending all day, maybe longer. Again, these guys did a month of trying to do this, and that just me and 2 randos, we finally fucking did it. Man, it was a joy to experience, and I think that in itself is one of those pure things where it's like, it is so focused on you versus the world, not you against each other, and I think that's promoted so much positivity for the culture. But just for it to be like, this is a fun experience. Huh. We're all just doing this thing that we all like, and we're all happy to be here. So yeah, I couldn't pitch enough for that. I think that's just so unique in the video game culture.
Well, I mean, it just takes so much time to get to that point.
Oh, it does, but if you have the time,
it's
sure, why not? Like, I have nothing else I was playing.
Yeah. What about you, though, Nathan? Any MMOs for you?
No. MMOs are a thing that I have long put down and know
I don't blame you.
better than to pick up.
Yeah.
I know my nature, and I know that I should not touch games like that.
Yeah.
I have recently been going in the Wayback Machine with my video gaming.
You live in the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, you live there.
It only just turned 2010 for you, Nathan.
I live there. It's either got to feel retro or be retro.
Yeah, that's true.
So this week I've not played a lot of games, but I would say in the last 2 weeks, Skyrim is something that I got back into.
What's going on with Skyrim? I want to hear the drama.
Yeah.
on Skyrim.
Man, okay. So I'm gonna start with Skyrim. There's a couple other things I play, but Skyrim in particular has irked me because 10th year anniversary edition comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, we've released Skyrim 15 times. Let's do it again. And this time I was like, it's been 10 years. I haven't played it in 10 years. I'll give it a shot. Like, sure, I'll pick up the anniversary edition, whatever that means. I couldn't even really figure out what that meant.
So it's been 10 years since Skyrim came out.
Yes.
And 6 still hasn't came out.
Yeah.
And 5 is like one of the best-selling games of all time.
Yeah, I think there's rumors that it's in development hell behind the scenes.
God,
well, so they did show a trailer.
Yeah, they showed that trailer
announcing it.
years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was the CG trailer, aka the trailer you put out when your game's not even close to being finished.
Yeah.
Like, I've just hated Bethesda for so long. Like, the fact that they're just like, here's our shit game that, has glitches and everything. You, the community, will fix it, and we'll profit from it.
So this is the thing I want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So, got the anniversary edition. Turns out all it really does is just give you all of the creation store content, which was a bunch of mods made by modders that were officially added into the game as purchasable items, effectively.
Right.
I have hardly run into any of that at all. So there's that to start. I'm still just playing Skyrim. I maybe have played 60 hours in total, and I've reached the point where my game crashes every time I load it within the first 2 minutes. I got it to fix by verifying the integrity of the data using Steam's thing. That got it to work, and I was able to play it for another 4 or 5 hours before I started doing it again.
Oh my god.
And a thing about the way I play games, and especially these days, is I do like doing the achievement thing, and that is one of the things that I was trying to do with playing through this time. I was like, I'm gonna 100% it. I don't feel like I'm gonna be able to do that because of these glitches, and I could, speaking to your point of fans fixing the game, there is a fan patch that I'm pretty sure would fix things, but if you put a mod on this game, the achievements don't work anymore.
Oh god.
So, my frustration is at such a level. I don't even want to talk about the game because it's Skyrim. It hasn't changed. Surprise!
Right.
Same game.
This is the game about Dragonborn, right?
This is this is a game about a glitch fest that has never been truly fixed, and they even had an update recently, and the fixes that they had were so minor, so little, just these couple of things, and it's like, what are you all doing? Because the fan patch has 6,000 bugs that they fix. Can't you just look at their work and be like, oh yeah, here's a list of bugs. They have a bug list for us, guys.
No, we're trying. We're slower than them. We keep taking their work.
But anyway, ultimately, this has just reminded me that I should not ever buy a Bethesda game, especially when it comes out. So when the next Elder Scrolls comes out, I won't be buying it for 2 years at least. Let the modding community get with it. Let them figure out what's wrong. Make it a game worth actually playing, because Bethesda just will continue to release hot garbage and not care.
And re-release hot garbage at that.
It's just those things that now in 2021, as we can date this because it'll be actually put up tomorrow. It's just everything since the PS4 and remakes and remasters were really popular. Companies have just used remake and remaster interchangeably, and you do not know the quality of the game that you're getting.
And a remake and a remaster are kind of different too.
Yeah.
A remake is then building it from the ground up. A remaster is then being we're upping the textures and stuff like that.
It's a graphics update and maybe some tweaks to Grand Theft Auto.
Vice City?
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto did theirs, and that
was last week.
Trilogy.
That Vice City's upgrade. Have you seen what the modding community had done to it and how much better it
the
looked
modding community looked better side by side.
And they took down all those mods.
Yeah.
Because God forbid you give people a reason to maybe want to get the old version and get it modded.
That's exactly what Blizzard did with Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Yeah, I mean
that the modding community got a hold of it and everything, but Blizzard put out Warcraft 3 Reforged, and they shut down the servers of the old Warcraft 3 like original servers that people were still playing on.
You can't buy the original Vice City anymore on Steam. You can only buy the remastered,
the definitive edition,
which looks
That's
like
what it is.
garbage.
Right.
Yeah,
it's worse.
But yeah, so other than that, that whole debacle aside, I've since moved on to really getting back into playing CRPGs.
CRPG.
So that's a term for basically really old top-down isometric.
What's the C stand for?
Computer.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that term before.
It's, I mean, in the beginning days, CRPG just meant any D&D style role-playing video game. But now it specifically means anything that basically feels like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Huh. I didn't know that.
So if it's a Baldur's Gate style game, that would be Divinity.
Ooh, I like Divinity a lot.
Tyranny, Tides of Numenera.
Yeah.
All those kind of games. Those are CRPGs. And they've they have remastered Baldur's Gate, but they're working on Baldur's Gate 3 now.
Oh yeah, that one's
and
fun.
it looks really good.
Yeah,
I don't quite understand the whole thing where the story's getting released in parts.
Yeah, you can play up to a certain part in the game with that one. Like the game is out loosely.
The thing is, to me, about something like that, Baldur's Gate is fairly open world. So you're playing a content-gated game where you can only play so much of the story, but you're in an open world where you can still be going around and looking at things. Seems weird. I'm going to wait till that fully finishes.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm playing the original Baldur's Gate. And
When did that come out?
Oh, I don't know.
Early 2000s? Maybe
Probably
90s?
around the time I was born, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say. This is
I played
game.
it. That was one of the first video games I played a lot of, and it holds up. I think I've really been enjoying it. It's not quite what I remembered in my head as it being.
It never is.
Well, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't remember it being as light on dialogue and heavy on humor as it actually turns out to be.
Those things seem to contradict each other.
I know, right? Like it's.
You will read our jokes. You will read all of them.
My memory of CRPGs is generally that there was lots of dialogue, lots of conversation. Like it was always just a whole
An excruciating amount, if anything.
And I think mainly, probably what I'm remembering there is like Planescape Torment and probably Baldur's Gate 2. I think Baldur's Gate 2 is a lot more dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
But Baldur's Gate 1 is such a light fantasy romp that it's refreshing, and I feel like it's a good way of dipping my toes back into the CRPG genre as a whole, because I'm basically planning on playing through Baldur's Gate 2, and then hopping into the other ones like Tyranny, and I would like to do Planescape again, but it's one of those. Do either of you have any idea what Planescape was?
I know what it was, but I haven't actually played it.
It's a game where you really could beat the last boss by talking to them.
That's pretty cool.
And it's neat. I think you actually could play the entire game without fighting anything if you were smart about the way that you talked to them and the encounters that you ran into. But that being said, it's also like super mechanically deep and a daunting thing to ever try and get into, because I don't know. It's just, there's a lot there, and there's a lot of weird things that you can get sidetracked into.
Yeah. And I think the biggest pitch for those games has always been it's a D&D campaign built into a video game. But
yeah, and that one is the best. Like as far as like actually feeling like you are making meaningful decisions and have the ability to go whatever way you think would be appropriate for the most part.
Right.
Well, that's like kind of a taste of like kind of what we'll be doing in the future, but we'll be going more in depth as we go on, because we didn't want this to be too awfully long of a show, because we also have the other half, which is our top 5 games we played this year. Most of the time, you would expect it to be top 5 of games that have came out this year that we have played. as we stated in our intro, that is definitely not going to be the case for us. You just heard a guy talk about how Baldur's Gate 1 is what he's playing right now.
Baldur's Gate 1 and Skyrim, games that came out 10 or more years ago.
Yeah, 10 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be for us. We're just going to go through the top 5 that we've played this year. So it's completely subjective. Whatever you want. If you don't even have 5, I'll be surprised if Dylan does with Final Fantasy 14, but we'll see. Maybe
Hey, I didn't start playing
surprised.
until August. If you came out before August, you had a fighting chance.
Yeah.
This list.
Oh, Village did come out then.
Yep, Village came out in February.
So do we want to like each do our 5?
Yeah,
4,
we'll do 5s
3, 2,
and
1?
work our way
Yeah.
up then.
Sure.
Okay, who wants to go first?
Nathan.
Nathan.
Sure, I'll go first. So number 5 is kind of a tough spot. Because I tend to play a lot of different smaller games, I've played a lot of games this year. I have played more than this, but 43 games this year I 100%ed. So that's a lot of games.
Yeah.
And
Working from home, baby.
well, yeah, we did work from home for a while there.
Mhm.
Yeah. But, you know, one of those that I would want to give an honorable mention to is Graveyard Keeper. I don't feel like it's a game of the year kind of thing, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I played 74 hours on it looking at my screen here, so
Yeah, that's quite a few.
I spent a good amount of time in that world, and I think as the Stardew Valley Harvest Moon genre goes,
Now you're talking my language.
it's an
Losing me.
exemplar example of that kind of game.
Well, that's getting added to my list as you speak.
One word of warning with it though: don't feel like you're rushed. It's gonna make you feel like there's a time crunch, but know that there actually isn't.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, so anyway, that honorable mention aside, my number 5 is going to be Budget Cuts. Not Budget Cuts 2, even though I played both of them this year.
Yes, I would have said Budget Cuts too.
I don't even know what that is.
So Budget Cuts you're actually there's gonna be several VR games on my top 5 list. It's a VR game.
Yeah.
Okay.
The realm I have not explored. We have not advanced technology enough for me.
Budget Cuts, you are playing a human who has basically just been fired from his job, and you're trying to sneak through this place that's being taken over by robots and escape with your life.
What?
What? you have a teleporter gun, and yeah, it's a fun game. I went through 100% of it. It has,
Of course you did.
It has some of the rarest achievements I've ever got. One of which was to play the entire game without killing anyone, and that's incredibly hard. Only 0.02% of people have gotten that achievement.
God.
Because they can kill each other by accident. So that's where it gets frustrating. But yeah, so that's my number 5. I would recommend it to anybody who has VR. I think it's a really great indie developed title.
I'm gonna start number 5 with I get to flex on all of you fucking casuals without a PS5. It's Returnal. I also haven't beaten it yet.
I want to play that game so badly.
It's very, very fun.
You will be hearing about it again.
Yeah, it's very, very fun. I love that you're taking, again, we're getting roguelites. We're taking the roguelike genre, we're doing shooter and bullet hell, and I really enjoy bullet hell.
It's like the first AAA roguelike.
AAA, beautiful, pretty.
It's gorgeous.
Story built in, kind of like with that Hades concept of expecting you to die and kind of come back in or whatever. So I like that the game knows exactly what it's doing. I would talk more about it, but I won't lie, I haven't beaten it yet. So
I'll be talking about it at length.
I picked it up and put it back down, not because it was too hard, but I'll get around to it. But what are you gonna do? I'm playing MMOs right now, so I will just say it is a wonderful game. It deserves more recognition, and it is probably going to be higher on number 5 if I had beaten it. But for right now, I haven't, so it's at number 5 for me.
My number 5 is I looked at my list. It's a very solid list. Spoiler: all of my games except one start with the letter R.
Shill. He's an R shill.
But number 5 for me is Ruin King, a League of Legends story. You don't have to have played League of Legends at all,
and I won't.
It doesn't do anything. It's just one of the best turn-based battle systems I've ever played. It's the same company that did. It's like Battle Chasers something. which
I've seen that on Steam before.
I've bought it, plan on playing it soon, but I haven't yet. A friend of mine told me to get it because of my love for this game. But it's got an incredible story on it. The gameplay, like, it makes turn-based battles like even more engaging because like you can either cast your spells like at slow, medium, or long speeds, and like it's on a bar at the bottom, and there are certain things that happen in certain quadrants. So if you cast a slow spell and you land in the healing quadrant, like you get healed at the same time as you cast your spell. So there's a lot of depth to the combat that it has. But I will say this, the biggest thing that, like, the reason it's at number 5 for me is I played it on my PS5, and it's a PS4 game that I downloaded on launch. I had to save after every single battle that I had. If it was like a trash mob, I had to save after every time because I had the game crash so many times. So many times. And on a turn-based game where, like, imagine you fight a boss for, like, 10 minutes, and you're like, I can't believe I beat that. And I can't say how many times, like, the screen would go black after I beat the boss, and then, like, it stays there for a second, and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, shit. And then, like, it would go back to the game, and I'd be like, dear God. But most of the time, like, it would hover for a second. I'm like, I know what's happening. And then I get the beep where the PS5 beeps at me. I'm like,
cannot compute.
I cannot understand this. And I just get so irate. But it was worth all the hassle, but it's a wait for me. Like, definitely wait to purchase it.
It's kind of frustrating how consoles are now a thing that can crash. Like that used to be one of the selling points about a console is that it's stable. They are designing these games to work on a thing that is the same across the board. There is no like, oh, mine has a different graphics card or more RAM or less.
Yeah, it's a consistent thing that shouldn't be crashing. Yet here we are. Game's getting worse. That's a topic.
It shouldn't be. Like, remember Super Nintendo? Like, you buy that cartridge, plug it into your Super Nintendo, it's gonna work. There's no DLC. There's no patches. It's perfect as is. But
if you wanted to buy a game and get it patched, back in the day, you just had to buy a new version of that game when they put it out. Street Fighter would be Super Street Fighter, Ultra Street Fighter. Those were just patches.
Absurd. But all right, to number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is a Darksiders title. I this year kicked off my whole frenzy of going through and 100%ing a bunch of older games with the Darksiders series. So this one in particular I'm picking is Darksiders 3. Have any of y'all played that?
No.
Nope.
Played any of the Darksiders series at all?
I played a little bit of it and then stopped.
So it's an interesting series in that it has never stuck to one genre of game, really. The first Darksiders was like your God of War kind
it was
of
hack and slashy.
Hack and slash, like, not quite DMC, but that kind of feel.
I remember thinking that's the one I played.
Number 2 went like, no, we're an open world game now that has MMO like World of Warcraft vibes, where there was loot mechanics, where there were greens and blues and purple items, and so that one went a whole different direction with the big open world and like all these side missions and stuff that you could do. Then 3, they were like, hey, I see that Darksiders or Dark Souls is doing well, and we're Darksiders. Let's just be Dark Souls. Let's just be the Souls-like of the Darksiders series, and that's what they did, and they did it well, I think, and also almost too close to being Dark Souls. Like even the lootable items, like the little like wispy looking souls that you see to loot items, are the exact same. It's pretty heavy handed how much of a Souls like that is.
Is Darksiders actually like a meme? Is it like a meme game where it's just picking up whatever the trend of the
So I'll mention one more. So I said that I played 4, but there is no Darksiders 4. But there is Darksiders Genesis, which is supposed to be like the prequel. It's Diablo.
I was hoping roguelike. That's what I was going to say.
That's what I'm hoping that they do next. Because, like, honestly, I really like the Darksiders series. I think the story is pretty fun. And I do love that they just are like, no, we're not going to just make the same game. We're going to just make something that feels noticeably different between every one of them. And the Diablo one was the one that actually got me cracking into working through the whole series again. It's got some horribly frustrating stuff if you want to 100% it, though. There is a series of jumping puzzles in a Diablo game.
You've already lost me.
And a top-down Diablo game where there are platforms that your character only 1 foot can stand on it.
Yeah.
And they move. It was maddening. I'll show you guys a video of it at some point, and I actually did the whole thing. Like I threw my controller at this couch so many times. But yeah, that's why number 3 got it, not the Diablo.
That's fair. Mine is a very different game choice on that one. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond is my.
Oh, you shill! You shill!
I wouldn't even buy that.
I am so disappointed in you. Oh
shut
my
up. It's
God.
fine. Listen, if you're a Pokemon fan, you're gonna fucking play Pokemon. That's it. You're gonna like it because that's it. And Bryce wants to complain because he doesn't get the concept of Pokemon.
Did it do anything new? That's always like that's really where I've started to break down, because at a point, I had a living dex of every single Pokemon.
Right.
Up until Sun and Moon, that's whenever there was a couple I didn't get a hold of.
Which is so funny because Sun and Moon is clearly like one of the best ones too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I played it, and I got almost everything, but there was some special event one that I didn't get a hold of, and I was like,
yeah, the special events thing is about the only thing that I go out of my way to say is uniquely stupid still. Yeah, Marshadow. Yeah.
By the way, a living dex, for anybody that doesn't know, is a Pokedex that basically says that Nathan has every Pokemon that's ever came out.
Not only do I completed the dex, but I have a living, I have an actual Pokemon for each evolution as well.
Right.
So if I have Charmander, I also have Charmeleon and Charizard.
Oh my God.
That's too much even for me. But
that basically what that does is in later games, to complete the dex, all I do is transfer over all my Pokemon, and the dex completes.
So Pokemon is very much a game that you want it to be out of it. If you want it to be the gotta catch 'em all ones, like Nathan, who's a completionist, in that way, you can do that. If you're asking if there's anything new and different in this one, not necessarily. Nothing that they didn't introduce into Platinum or stuff like that, except for the Grand Underground. So
they added experience share.
The Grand,
I think I have
no, that's
heard
always
about
been
that.
there. It's just gotten progressively worse on that one.
So is the Grand Underground good? Because I did hear that was one new thing.
Yeah, so back in the day, they would have been the base building mechanic that most people didn't give a shit about. Now it's an underground world with a pop-out hub. So in the original, back in the original Pokemon games and stuff like that, you go through grass, Pokemon just pop up. But then in more newer games, they've done hub world stuff where you can see the Pokemon actually moving. So they have that part of the Pokemon stuff in the Grand Underground. You can go into these little cave systems, and you go into the little cave, and it has its own little biome, and you see Pokemon there, and there's several different biomes in your little cave expansion. And that part's actually super, super neat. If you're asking if it did too much more than that, no, because you're talking about the Pokemon Company here. These guys.
It's really pathetic. That's why I won't.
But people keep buying them.
Yeah, and
that's
that's
the
why
thing.
I've stopped. I won't buy another one until they actually make a new game.
So
they haven't made anything new.
Well, Legend of Arceus, we'll see.
But that hasn't came out yet.
Yeah,
so
we'll see how that all plays out by the time it rolls in.
It went from being an open world style to Monster Hunter world style.
Oh, in Arceus, it's
where basically you have a hub world, and then you travel to the snow world.
Yeah, Pokemon is a company that could not. You know what? Credit where credit's due. It moves forward slowly, but it moves forward.
That is
you say
no. Okay, well, also
that's like saying the grandparent who now is okay with
You're talking to a person who doesn't play it and a person who does play it but has dropped off of it as somebody who's played all of them, keeping up with all of them. Let me tell you what I mean with that. And I'll keep the rant short because I don't want to rant too much time on this one. The point being is that, yes, if you look at the games chronologically moving forward, if you're starting from Pokemon Red to, let's just Pokemon Shield and Sword, right, which was the last big one before this, you're seeing slowly but surely mechanics are moving forward. They're making small changes, small tweaks, but they're continually trying to put it. Now, is
experience share. Everybody loves that.
Shut up about that.
I have to disagree with the Sword and Shield title, though. Sun and Moon had more features and quality of life than Sword and Shield.
All right, now let me complete this thought. I am not saying that they are moving forward and not taking steps back. They are trying. Here's my thing: is that from new genre, 3DS genre onwards, Sun and Moon, sure, you're gonna do your remakes. You're gonna do your things where they add a little bit extra story that they should have just had in the original story. They're gonna do things where they have things forward and then they take some stuff away. Yes, but overall, they're pretty aggressive. There is at least one thing about the games that are universally trying to move forward a little bit. HMs has been a big leap forward from not making an HM slave Pokemon. For those who don't know, you had to catch one, feed it a whole bunch of stuff, and you had a Pokemon that you had 5 slots instead of 6, effectively. Sometimes 4, because you had to have Pokemon that knew how to fly or surf or rock break or shit that they're never going to use otherwise. So you had 4 teams there. Eventually, they made it from Sun and Moon to just be like attached to an item, you can call a thing, and boom, much more easy. Now, am I saying it's acceptable or that it's progressive or that it's highly above thing? No, it's still at a snail's pace to where the like video game genre and world is as a whole. But for looking at it in Pokemon to the Pokemon timeline, there's small little tweaks. The overworld thing has been a big shift from Shield and Sword that they've since put in. That now they're trying to continue to rehash and try to build the world out from there because everything needs to be open world. But Pokemon is one of those ones that actually kind of makes sense for it to be open world on. So, again, even with the Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearl, which is a remake of an older game, yes, I know, but they're introducing some of the new elements into that stuff there. Now, is it 2 steps forward, 1 maybe more steps back with them sometimes? Yes, experience share not being an optional trigger off or on. Frustrating, but whatever. It is the point.
It's just like all these little quibbles, but
yeah.
You've got to also look at it a little more broadly. Like, the amount of money that there is in Pokemon, the amount of like just raw resources that they have in just the number of variety of creatures and everything. Like, there's so much history and power behind it that they could make good games.
It
not
is
just
the number 1
games.
franchise in the world. Let me make this so for people who don't know this one fact about Pokemon, and then we'll start to wind down because we could talk Pokemon on a whole separate podcast in itself.
You could.
Number 1 franchise. Let me sink this in. So Disney, Marvel, you know how those things are giant money-making fucking printing machines? Put those together. They don't even equal half of Pokemon, which is pretty fucking insane.
Do you know what the number 2 brand is?
I did, and I don't remember what off the top of my head is. Right now.
I'm like 80% sure it's Hello Kitty.
No, it is Hello Kitty. You're right. Yeah, because I remember thinking like, what the fuck? But that's a whole separate thought. It is, yeah. Now that being said, is it all their games? No. Merchandise sells everything. Merchandise is always the money. And they're...
Oh, yeah, I still buy that. Like, every time I take a trip, I buy a Pikachu that's dressed up as something.
I mean, exactly. To be fair, they're killing it on merchandise.
Oh, they kill it.
Yeah, they kill it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, listen, if you're a Pokemon fan, I don't blame you for also wanting more out of Pokemon. I don't blame you for sitting there and being upset with it. But if you're a Pokemon fan who just wants to play it because you know what you're getting out of it and doing all this one, you have your lovers, you have your haters, it's around long enough where you're going to have all people in those camps. But for me, for what it's worth, it is all of my favorite childhood experiences. I think all of my favorite moments are Pokemon moments, of all, like in the games specifically. Mm-hmm. My favorite moment at my favorite birthday, 8 years old, was cracking a Pokemon Yellow Pikachu Game Boy Color one. Cue up to Nathan's, he has it up there on his shelf, not mine specifically. With Pokemon Yellow and playing it all fucking night. Like, it is just a series of those ones. Rose tinted glasses, yes. Yeah. But fuck you, I know I have them, so it is what it is. Brilliant Diamond, Shine and Pearl. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I feel like Pokemon. Anyway, price number 4.
I couldn't disagree with all of those comments more. Yeah. But anyway, my number 4 is another R game. It is Ratchet.
Can we just call your list the hard R?
Yeah, it should be. It's Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Does it do anything particularly different than any Ratchet and Clank game that's come before it? No. It really doesn't.
Okay, so let me be you. Oh, okay. Pokemon experience share.
But what it does, though, it pushes Ratchet and Clank to, like, as hard as it can go to, like, try...
As hard R as it can go.
As hard R as it can go. It introduces a whole new character, like a whole new universe. And it's just a beautiful game. I know, I'm, like, a sucker for graphics, and this is... The second game really I got from my PS5 where I was like, this really shows like what the PS5 can do. Like it's really pushing the envelope. So I don't really have too much to say about it. I can understand why it's not on more people's top 10 of the year. Because it's really one of those games that like you play it, you beat it, it's over.
Yeah.
It doesn't really leave a lasting impression. So it's not one of those like The Last of Us 2 where you're going to be remembering it for a while. Even Hades for doing something different. It just does an action adventure game in like a super good way.
Right.
Yeah, I never had played many of those. I only remember going over to a friend's house and joining them along for one of them for like an hour and a half or so, but I thought it was really cool. Like, I was surprised because in my head I was like...
Rift Apart?
Not Rift Apart, but I always considered Ratchet and Clank games to be like a kid's game, having not seen anything about the gameplay.
Right. I mean, it feels like a Crash Bandicoot or like a Donkey.
That's why I got to play it though when I was younger, because my parents like thought it was like a little cute kids game. Like,
suckers.
I didn't know what it was.
Take that, Kel Senior.
That doorbell you heard was Hot Shots Golf himself coming in. So he's just watching us at the moment.
All right, so let's grind through these lists.
We do need to go a little bit quicker. That is a good point.
Yeah, we're getting dry.
Dylan talked about Pokemon for like 20 minutes.
Well, I tried not to, but prompts kept coming up.
There's a billion of them, and they're all the same.
He put the new Pokemon as his number 4 game he's played this year. Like,
the unnecessary classic for the audio-only podcast, yes.
Yeah. Keep that part in there.
Okay, so continuing from there, number 3 for me is going to be Loop Hero. It's a game that definitely took me by surprise. You know, the art style is really cool, but not exactly something that you would expect anybody to be releasing this day and age. But they do it well. It was very innovative for the roguelike genre. I know we talked about Hades a little bit earlier, and I don't really feel like it was super innovative for a roguelike, except for the adjustable difficulty part. Loop Hero flips the script on being a roguelike in a lot of ways, and I think they execute very well on it. Also, the music for that game is so hype. Like, it just builds slowly because they know you're only going to go so many loops before the boss fight, so the music can just slowly build up to a crescendo for that inevitable encounter. And yeah, it's executed so well.
Crescendo is cum shot for people who don't know music.
But yeah,
thanks, Dylan.
That's number 3.
You could have just said money. You could have just said money shot. That's somewhat more appropriate.
His is the C list over here. So.
C list.
My number 3 is Valheim. I played it with my friends for the beginning chunk of this month, or the beginning chunk of the year rather. Played for like a month or 2. It was just like a pleasant little like, hey, this is a multiplayer game that you just thought was doing a lot more than what it actually presents as. It has these janky PS1 graphics that, as Nathan may or may not have mentioned in a part you will never hear, is a lot more pretty than to get like the meets the eye for something as low graphic. You can just, if you don't look too closely to details, you can just appreciate it. And I think that says a lot about the game's tone for itself. Just something for you and the boys to get together, ooga booga on, make a house, live together. Kind of sounds like a gay marriage now that I think about it. Anyway, that's my number 3. That's Valheim.
I don't know where his mind is at, but number 3 for me is going to be Satisfactory. It's the game I put the most time into on Steam. I have the most hours on this game.
Wow. That Benny Benassi game, right?
The what?
That Benny Benassi music video, right?
Benny Benassi.
Oh, that's Satisfaction.
Oh, no, definitely not that. But it's a factory building game. You can also play it multiplayer. But apparently I have a vision that nobody else has, so when I play it with friends, they're like, I'm not doing this. Yeah. And they always leave.
We hate your factory price, we're leaving.
I don't care. My factory is beautiful.
It wasn't satisfactory.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to a point where if you guys played it, you could build uranium, but uranium makes it to where like you have your whole factory that you've built like this empire that's like in this spot, but uranium makes it to where wherever you produce uranium you can't have anything near it.
Yeah, it's all radioactive, right?
Yeah, because it's all radioactive, so you have to put it somewhere. You have to build another factory super far off, and like you have to craft the base materials and everything up to uranium.
Have you ever watched a guy called Let's Game It Out on YouTube? You should watch his videos on Satisfactory. He makes a conveyor belt tornado that is impressive.
Well, I haven't done any of that, nor do I plan to. I got to the uranium part, kind of like I was talking about Sekiro earlier. I was just like, I'm not doing that. And then I just cut out, like, I had a good time with it.
How are you going to 100% a game?
Yeah. I have 100% of like 2 or 3 games in my life. It's like, if I beat the story, I'm done.
Yeah.
Kind of like Hades.
Well, but you didn't. There was still a story.
Fair.
So, moving on to number 2. Valheim is
it's back.
coming up again.
Yeah.
I think I played like 200 plus hours of this game.
This man was a fiend for
it. I saw your organization.
I was in it. I was deep down in those crypts and the swamps, just digging through that muck, getting all that iron. I played a lot. I hosted a server. I had a bunch of friends on there. I sailed my boat off the end of the world. Everything you could do in Valheim, I did. And I have not since gone back to it. They've released some updates. They've been some nice things, and it's been, nothing too big. I do envision myself definitely coming back to this game at some point. And I will say a thing that I like about this that makes it more comfortable to come back to than, say, like Minecraft, where it's like you come back, play a fresh world. Well, if you come back to Valheim to play a fresh world, you can take all your stuff with you from the other worlds to that new location.
Not just your stats?
No, you can bring
like
I mean, there's
your
not even
equipment
stats.
and everything. Whatever's on your person will load up into that world. So you can basically switch back and forth between worlds and just unload things.
Yeah, because the tools really are the progression. I mean, like, how far... Yeah, it's more...
And losing them
Oh,
hurts.
painful.
Which is why whenever I accidentally sailed off the edge of the world, I immediately logged my character out and switched to another world and dumped all my stuff into a chest because, like, I will never get any of this back.
Nope.
Because I didn't even mean to. I was just sailing my boat and I was like, that kind of looks like the edge of the world. And then I felt it pulling the boat and I was like, oh shit. I started trying to turn the boat away from it and it just wouldn't go. And I was just like, I'm going off the waterfall now, I guess.
Thus proving that the world...
world is in fact flat.
Is in fact flat. Speaking of things that aren't flat, however, my number 2 is Resident Evil 8. Big titty vampires. You heard it for like the first 25% of the game, and then you get past it. But who cares? You only played the first part anyway, and then once you killed them, you stop playing. So I like it. It's it's Resident Evil. Jokes aside, I really enjoyed the Resident Evil direction where they've been going in more recent times. I like that they keep just enough horror, but the action is balanced just enough where you still feel like you should be scared instead of like you're just a superpowered god by the time it's all said and done.
Resident Evil 5 is peak Resident Evil.
Oh my god, no, it's not. That is fucking. You're punching boulders. You're fun. To be fair, it's a fun co-op for what it is, but it is pure action.
Oh, it is.
They aren't even trying to make it scary anymore. This game, since 7, they've tried to maintain this sense of being still a scary game.
Yeah, they've actually taken it back to being a scary game.
Right.
Which is
yeah.
Fantastic to see.
Right, yeah. And now that they're adding waifus into it, you're only winning more points with me as that stuff goes. And then you get to kill them because, sometimes they've just been bad. But yeah, it's just fucking sweet. The story is pretty interesting altogether. Like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk about Resident Evil 8 when everybody else has talked about Resident Evil 8, and you've already probably played it. So you're probably just like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it makes sense.
Mine's one that probably is not too expected, but mine is another League of Legends game. It is Legends of Runeterra.
Chill!
But the game, they make good content, wherever they go. Like, Arcane on Netflix, undisputable, everybody loves it. I even got Mason to watch it, and he really liked it.
Mason, can you vouch for that?
What were we talking about?
Arcane.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
Really good.
He said it was like a 9 or something.
Yeah, I gave it a 9.
Wow.
Yeah. But they just keep, this year, they finally went into their name Riot Games, and because they're actually making games and stuff outside of League.
Oh, I thought they were actually going to riot. 3 days
straight. But to talk more about the game, it's not even for the PvP aspect of it. They released a PvE mode for it that is exactly Slay the Spire. That's exactly what it is. And I have been enjoying it thoroughly. I have played it so much that I pretty much know the path to go every time on any character to beat it. I know if you're going against this boss, you need to take this reward at this time or whatever. And I haven't looked at the guide. I've just played it so much. If I ever get a downtime during work, I'm usually playing that just because I can stop playing it at any time. Super fun. It doesn't do anything extraordinary. The music, the graphics, nothing. It's just particularly enjoyable to me. So it's my number 2. I've played it a lot this year.
Have you ever seen the board game that they came out with?
Yeah, I wasn't Mechs and Minions.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
The
about
minions and stuff are cool, but it's very limited in what you can do because it gives you scenarios to set up and stuff, and then you kind of play through that. Which the minis, like I said, are really cool, but it doesn't seem to have much depth there.
Whenever you said mechs and minions, I thought you meant MEX, Mexicans and minions, and I was just like, what is this game they put out?
No, not at all, buddy.
I got
so number 1.
Number 1.
Oh,
I don't know what yours is. I know yours is going to be 14.
Oh, mine's going to be Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
What?
I'm just For some reason, when you were talking about that game in my head, where you're on your downtime and stuff, is that a phone game?
It is mobile as well.
Okay, so that's what made me think what games have I played on my phone? It's Animal Crossing Pocket Camp's about the only thing I played on my phone.
God.
No, that's not the number 1 of the year though.
Thank God.
No, I'm a serious gamer. My number one this year that I played this year was Half-Life Alyx. It's a VR game. It is the first game to be released in the Half-Life series in a long time.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly good. It's a game that makes you wonder how your computer's able to even render it, especially if you're somebody who is familiar with the world of VR gaming. So many VR games look nowhere near as good as this game does, and if you even try and get them bumped up much at all, it becomes visually nauseating just how much it can be a challenge for, at least for my system, to run it. But Alyx was flawless and absolutely amazing. The whole time the visuals are stunning, the gameplay is perfect. It strikes the creepy tones too, which is such a fun thing to be experiencing in VR. It deserves all the praise that it got and then some. I think it's something that, though it's hard to let somebody casually experience it to, sell somebody on VR, I think if anybody spent a decent amount of time playing this game, it would sell them on the idea of VR. No question.
I just looked it up because I didn't realize it was last year. It seems like it came out a lot,
no, it felt like it came out 2 years ago. Or something.
I don't know why, but I remember it was like, it's another one of those that we were talking about, just like with Hades, that like it was just created in a year that like The Last of Us 2 came out, right. And you're not really going to compete with that. But Half-Life Alyx was one of those that was talked about all the time with Game of the Year. Yeah. But it's just so niche because it's still
VR accessibility makes
it's hard to really hit that wide demographic you need to really get Game of the Year.
It was also designed with the idea of using Valve's system.
That's even more specific.
Their controller scheme, which you could play it with other ones and it plays fine with them, but it is that little bit better whenever you're playing with their hand controllers that can actually detect individual finger movements. So it makes like grabbing things and manipulating objects within the world just that much more tactile, which was really cool.
So Price wants to sit here and think that my number one's going to be Final Fantasy XIV because I've been playing it nonstop since August, and because it has a great story, wonderful community, and everything else about it. Really engaging plot. But as you may have known, my number 4 pick was Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. What you didn't know is I also picked up Pokemon Shining Pearl, my number 1 pick for this year. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do this. It's the same game with just with different Pokemon. No, it's Final Fantasy 14 for the reasons I was just talking about. It's delightful. It's a wonderful time sink I've put in an enormous amount of time into it. And honestly, I appreciate a game that you can play for that long and still enjoy. I think that's the test of a true game, and very far and few between do you feel like you find those games anymore. It being an MMO feels like a little bit of a cheat, so credit where credit's due. I mean, it's built to be a game that you're playing for until you die. But the game is just...
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. It is a lifestyle, I guess. But it's satisfying, and I've put on 30 pounds since I've been playing it, so that's it.
My number 1 game of the year, I wasn't really thinking that this was I was going to enjoy it this much, but as I alluded to earlier, it is Returnal. Because you were talking about it earlier. Yeah. I was surprised how much I liked it, because roguelikes usually, I like some of them, but they're not a genre I really, gravitate towards. And it also really helped that, I didn't have any expectations going into this game, because I didn't really, I just heard people talk about it being good, but it's not one of those I bought on release. But it does something really cool in that Hades, tells its story when you, through your gameplay, when you die every time something changes. And Returnal kind of does that concept, but I think almost does it better because it examines the psychology of the woman you're playing as, which also, first of all, a middle-aged woman being who you're playing as,
very progressive, she's not a built waifu by nature. She's not an initially attractive. Not say she's unattractive. But...
She's just a normal middle-aged woman, which is I haven't really ever done before, which I thought was interesting. And she's a mother, and there's all kinds of layers to her character that you
take
find
that
out.
Conservative libs.
Yeah, it's a really awesome game, and it's the thing that I was like complaining so much about Sekiro earlier is that it feels like the game does not want you to succeed. Like it's just like almost cheating to like not let you succeed. Whereas Returnal's like it seems very fair. Every time I died, it was because of me. Like I felt like it's something I did. It wasn't the game like not being perfect. It was because I did something to not like I didn't get the right like power up or something at some point. But at the end of the day, it's still a game. Like it's very like you get health pickups. You get power-ups. It's just a beautiful game, and the sound design is awesome too. Like there's a world where you're underwater and like everything is muffled down there. Like you've shot this gun a million times, but it sounds different because you're underwater.
The use of the DualSense is underappreciated too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I mean Sony's really been trying to push it. Not a lot of games have been doing it.
Our controllers are the shit.
Cool.
Fucking play it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it
well,
is
I mean,
pretty
the Switch
cool.
Also, their controller can like do all kinds of sensing and like weight adjustment stuff, but only the first couple of like gimmicky games that came out for it utilized any of it.
If I'm actually playing a game at home, like on a Switch on the TV, I will never not use a Pro controller. I hate those little Joy-Cons so much because the drift is just terrible. And I even called Nintendo about it, and they're like, yeah, that's just something we kind of know about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Nice. That's real cool of you guys.
We put that out in spite of that. If somebody could fix that for us, that'd be great. We're kind of taking
Like
a
a
Bethesda
Bethesda
model here.
Like somebody else fix it, maybe we'll add it in, but like it's there if you want it. But your achievements will be disabled.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you will be disabled from here. Go ahead.
Okay, well that's our top 5.
So that's our top 5, and that's our wrap up for our end of the year. No,
this is our end of the year.
End of the year. End of the year video game discussion. That's the first one that we've ever done. So, if you want to catch us, you're fucking already here. I'm not gonna plug. You already know if you're listening to this already, but I don't know how to do comments.
Movie review podcast.
Yeah, we have a movie review podcast that you can
we've been
also
doing for a while.
Just in case this is your first time hearing us, we've got about 100 episodes.
We do way more movies than we do video games, as it turns out, which is ironic because
we have more videos than subscribers at this point.
Yeah.
So hey, maybe that'll change at some point.
By a country mile. But if you want to check out our movie reviews and all that, you're in the right place. I think this is Spotify if you're listening to this. And guess what? You just have to do like one weird click. I actually don't know how playlists and stuff work on Spotify with it.
I don't either.
Guess we're going to find out. But anyway, make sure to tune in next time for whenever we talk about video games here on the effing podcast.
Effing Game Podcast.
Effing Game Podcast. Hope you guys have a wonderful New Year's, Merry Christmas, and all of that. And we will see you in 2022.
You're supposed to say Happy Holidays now.
No, fuck those guys. It's Christmas or nothing. Get out.
Starbucks red cups.
Yeah. If you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm not playing. Any happy holidays, guys. Happy New Year's, all that jazz. And we'll see you next time where we're going to talk about video games.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I will now go.